Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive. You know, we always talk about AI changing the world, and it seems like every week something new pops up.
Right. It's incredible how fast things are moving.
So get this. Google just dropped this new AI model, Genie 2, and it's supposed to be able to create entire 3D worlds, like from a picture or even just some text.
Oh, wow. I remember Genie 1. That was pretty impressive for its time, being able to whip up those 2D game levels.
Yeah, it's a big deal back then. So is Genie 2 just like the 3D version of that?
It's more than that, actually. They're calling it a foundational world model. Think of it like going from drawing on a flat surface to suddenly sculpting something you can walk around.
Okay, that's a pretty big leap, but what does that foundational part really mean?
So most AI training happens in these really specific environments, almost like practice drills. But a foundational world model, it's like creating a whole virtual space where AI can learn in a more open-ended way.
So they're not just learning specific tasks, they're learning how to, exist in a world.
Exactly. And that's why Google is even hinting that these models could be a stepping stone towards AGI.
AGI.
Yeah.
Artificial General Intelligence. From making game worlds. That's a bold claim.
It is. And we're still very early on, of course, but the idea is that these AI agents, they can learn to navigate, solve problems, even interact with each other in these virtual spaces.
Okay, but I gotta see it to believe it.
Yeah.
Did they actually show what Genie 2 can create?
Well, yeah. The DeepMind team has a whole page of demos online. There are all sorts of examples like wooden puppets, super detailed robots, even a boat just floating on the water.
Sounds cool, but is it just for show? Can you, interact with these things?
Oh, totally. The examples are all GIFs, and you can see avatars moving around, picking things up, even shooting at targets. It's kind of like watching those time lapses of artists drawing, but now the art is interactive.
All right, so the visuals are impressive, but what about, the brains behind it all? The article mentions something called long horizon memory, which sounds pretty important.
It is, yeah. Think about how annoying it was in old video games when you could only see a short distance and everything else just popped in.
Yeah, totally killed the immersion.
Right. So long horizon memory is Genie 2 trying to solve that. The model keeps track of where things are, even when they're out of sight.
So it's like the AI has a better memory than me.
Haha, maybe. But the long part might be a bit of a stretch. The article points out that it can only maintain this consistency for about a minute at most, and most of the demos are like 10 or 20 seconds.
Okay, so not quite ready to create a whole sprawling open world that feels totally believable.
Not yet, no. But it could still change how we make games, even in the short term. Google's really pushing it as a tool for prototyping.
So instead of spending weeks building a level, a designer could just give Genie 2 some concept art and have a playable demo in minutes.
Potentially, yeah. It could be a game changer for testing out ideas and getting a feel for how a game might play.
I can see the appeal for developers, for sure. But is there a downside to all this focus on visuals?
It's a good point. There's a risk of getting carried away with the shiny new toy, you know. You can't forget about good game design.
Like putting the cart before the horse kind of thing.
Yeah. Game designer Sam Barlow actually said it's like decorating a cake before you've even baked it.
Huh. I love that analogy.
Mm-hmm.
You could have something that looks amazing, but tastes awful.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And there are other technical hurdles, too. The article mentions model speed, for example.
Right. Genie 1 was way too slow to play anything in real time. Have they improved that with Genie 2?
It's hard to say for sure. They mention a distilled version that runs in real time, but they say it comes with reduced quality.
So it's either beautiful and slow or fast and potentially kind of blurry. Not ideal.
It highlights a challenge with generative AI in general, balancing quality and speed. And speaking of quality, there's another thing the article touches on, this tendency for these models to degenerate over time.
Degenerate? What does that even mean in this context?
Remember that AI that recreated Minecraft? Oasis.
Yeah, that one was generating some crazy stuff.
It was, but after a while, things would go haywire, textures would get messed up, objects would turn into weird blobs. Almost like it was losing its mind.
Okay, that is a little creepy. Is Genie 2 doing that too?
You can see hints of it even in the short GIFs. Characters get blurry when they move, backgrounds get distorted. It's a reminder that these models are still works in progress.
So it's like those incredible sandcastles you see on the beach.
Yeah.
Beautiful, but ultimately fragile.
That's a great analogy. But even with the visual stuff being a bit unpredictable, there's something else about Genie 2 that's super exciting. Its potential for training other AI.
Okay, I'm all ears. Tell me more.
So the article talks about how they used Genie 2 with this Sima agent.
Okay, back up for a sec. What's a Sima agent again?
Right, sorry. It's basically this type of AI that learns by, messing around in its environment, kind of like a virtual robot.
Gotcha. So they put the Sima agent inside a world that Genie 2 made.
Yeah. And they gave it simple instructions, things like go through that red door or pick up the blue cube.
And it could actually do that, like understand and follow those instructions.
It could. It controlled an avatar like a human player, using keyboard and mouse inputs to move around.
Wow. So it's not just making pretty pictures, it's creating worlds that other AI can actually learn and function in.
That's the crazy part. And this could be huge for things like robotics.
Robotics?
And,
How so?
Well, right now, teaching a robot how to do something is like a super tedious process, lots of manual programming and stuff.
Right. You can't just be like, hey, robot, make me a sandwich and expect it to just figure it out.
Exactly. But with something like Genie 2, you could create a virtual space where robots can practice those kinds of tasks, through trial and error.
So virtual robot boot camp.
Pretty much. A safe place to mess up before they're let loose in the real world.
Okay, I'm liking this robotics angle.
Yeah.
So you're saying that what an AI learns in like a Genie 2 world could then be used to teach a real world robot how to do stuff.
That's the idea. It's called transfer learning. And there's a ton of research happening right now on how to make that work.
I think I read about some experiments where they taught a robot to grab things in a simulation, and then it could actually grab real objects in the real world.
Exactly. That's the kind of breakthrough that could revolutionize a lot of fields. Manufacturing, healthcare, even space exploration. Imagine sending robots to Mars that have already learned to get around in a super realistic Martian simulation made with Genie 2.
Okay, now that's mind-blowing. So all this from making video game worlds, but, all this talk about AI and robots, is this going to mean game developers are out of a job soon?
That's the big question, isn't it? I don't think so. At least not yet. These tools are just that tools.
More like AI is a partner, not a replacement.
Yeah, I think so. Game development is about a lot more than just pretty visuals, storytelling, character development, the way the game actually plays.
Right, you can have the most amazing world, but if the game is boring, no one's going to play it.
Exactly, and that's where human creativity is still key. I think the best game devs in the future will be those who figure out how to use AI to, enhance their creativity.
So instead of fearing AI, maybe we should be thinking about how to work with it.
Totally. It's about finding that balance, where AI helps us be even more creative.
That makes a lot of sense. So instead of fearing AI, maybe we should be thinking about how to collaborate with it to create even more amazing experiences.
Couldn't agree more. We're just at the beginning of what's possible, and it's up to us to use this technology in a way that benefits everyone.
It's almost like AI is a mirror reflecting our own potential, for good and bad, right?
That's a great way to put it. And it leads us to a question for you, dear listener. What if AI can create these incredibly detailed virtual worlds that feel totally real?
Where do we draw the line between what's real and what's virtual?
Will there be a time when the things we experience in a virtual world feel just as important as the things we experience in the real world? Maybe even more so.
It's like something out of a sci-fi movie. But it feels like those sci-fi ideas are getting closer and closer to reality every day.
And it's not just about entertainment anymore. Think about education, healthcare, even how we connect with other people. All of that is changing because of AI in these virtual spaces.
Feels like we're on the verge of a massive change in how we live our lives, and AI is right at the center of it all. What are your thoughts, listener?
Yeah, it's a lot to think about. We have all this amazing potential, but it feels like there's some big risks too, right?
Definitely. That's why it's so important to be talking about responsible AI, It's not enough to just focus on what's possible. We got to think about the consequences too.
Because AI is basically a reflection of us, like we said before. And if we're not careful, it's going to reflect all our bad stuff too, right?
Exactly. There's so much discussion about bias in AI, and for good reason. If we're not super intentional about the data we use, we could end up with AI that makes our existing problems even worse.
It's like that saying, garbage in, garbage out, but with much higher stakes. Right. And that's another reason why it's so crucial to have a bunch of different voices in the room when we're developing this stuff. People with different backgrounds, different experiences. That way, we have a better chance of making AI that works for everyone, not just a select few.
I think that's a good point to make sure our listeners get. This isn't just some abstract tech thing. The choices we make now about AI are going to have a real impact on people's lives.
Absolutely. And it's not just those big scary headlines like robots taking our jobs. It's the stuff that's already happening, like the algorithms deciding what we see online or facial recognition being used everywhere.
Yeah, it's easy to feel kind of powerless, like it's all happening too fast and there's nothing we can do.
I get that. But like we said earlier, we're not just passengers here. We have a voice. We can demand better from the people creating this tech.
So what can people actually do? Where do they start?
Well, first thing, educate yourself. There are tons of resources out there, articles, podcasts, books. You don't have to be a tech expert to understand the basics.
And don't be afraid to ask questions, even if they seem dumb. That's how we all learn, right?
Definitely. And talk to people, your friends, your family. Share what you're learning. Support organizations that are fighting for responsible AI.
Vote for politicians who actually get it, too.
Right. The more we talk about this stuff, the more we can push for an AI future that benefits everyone.
It's been an amazing conversation.
I agree. Lots to think about for sure.
We've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive, and I hope it's given you a better understanding of, well, not just Genie 2, but this whole world of AI and what it could mean for all of us.
Definitely. And hopefully it sparks some more questions, too.
Because the conversation about AI is just getting started.
All right.
So stay curious, keep learning, and keep asking those tough questions.
Absolutely. And thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next